Before I came to Serbia, I thought I already knew something about this country. I had seen the headlines, I had heard the opinions, I had seen the stories people tell from a distance. But the truth is, I had never actually been here. And you could know a lot about a country without ever really knowing what it feels like to be there. So I decided to find out for myself. I spent 7 days traveling through Serbia from the streets of Belgrade and a city shaped by centuries of history to conversations with people I'd never met before. From the busy energy of the capital to a much quieter side of Serbia and back into the city after dark. Along the way, I met people who changed my first impression of this country. Experienced moments I never planned for, and discovered that the story you hear about a place is rarely the whole story. Because Serbia is not just its history, it is not just its politics, and it is not just what appears in the media. A country is also the people you meet, the streets you walk, the conversations you never expected to have, and the memories you take home with you. So this is not an attempt to show you all of Serbia. That would be impossible. This is simply my experience in over 7 days in a country I thought I knew, but really didn't. This isn't Serbia. We have finally arrived in Serbia. This is the airport. Let's see what happens now. I think we are going to have some fun. The airport is actually much bigger than I expected. There's a lot of space around it. And now we are going to immigration. We have just gone through immigration. And honestly, the process was very easy. The officer was very friendly. He basically just looked at me and said, "Okay, go." Sometimes your first impression of a country begins with something completely unexpected. Not a famous landmark, not a beautiful landscape, just a simple interaction, a person, a smile, a few words, and suddenly the country feels a little less unfamiliar. My luggage has arrived. Most of the people have already left the airport. It is almost empty now. So now we're going to leave and figure out how to reach our accommodation. We are going by bus. We are not taking a taxi. So let's see how this goes. The first time you enter a new city, you notice things that people who live there probably don't notice anymore. The buildings, the roads, the architecture, the people, the way the city moves. And as I got closer to Belgrade, I started getting my first real impression of Serbia. Belgrade is the capital of Serbia. It sits at the meeting point of the Sava and Danube rivers. That location has made the city strategically important for centuries. It has also made Belgrade a place where different cultures, empires, and historical periods have met. But I wasn't thinking about all of that yet. I was simply looking out of the window, trying to understand the city for the first time. We have finally reached the city center, and honestly, there's a lot happening here. There are buildings everywhere. People are walking around. Buses are moving through the city, and the atmosphere feels very alive. As the evening began, I started seeing a different side of Belgrade. The light changed. The city became softer. The buildings looked different, and suddenly, I understood why people become attached to cities. It is strange how quickly a place can change your feelings. A few hours earlier, I was still trying to figure out how to get here. Now I was standing in the city center, watching the evening arrive over a place I'd never seen before. This is the city center. There's a bus that goes further ahead. Tomorrow we are probably going to take it and see where it goes, but for now, we still have to find our hotel. The city was already giving me a first impression. Belgrade felt busy, social, a little chaotic. but also welcoming in a way I had not expected. And the funny thing is, I'd only been in Serbia for a few hours. I hadn't seen the old city yet. I hadn't visited the fortress. I hadn't left Belgrade. I hadn't met the people who would become part of this journey. I hadn't seen the villages. I hadn't seen the city at night. I had barely started. The second day started with a completely different feeling. Yesterday, everything was new. The streets, the language, the transport, the city itself. But today, I was no longer arriving. Today, I was exploring, and my plan was simple. I wanted to see the old side of Belgrade. We are now walking through Belgrade, and honestly, I really like the atmosphere here. There is a lot happening. Yeah, people are walking everywhere. There are cafes, shops, restaurants, and old buildings, but at the same time, the city doesn't feel completely modern. You can still see the history in the architecture. This was one of the first things I started noticing about Belgrade. The city does not separate its past from its present. The old and the new exist together. You can walk through a modern street and a few minutes later, find yourself standing beside something that has existed for centuries. Belgrade has always been shaped by its location. The city stands where the Sava and Danube rivers meet. That position made it strategically important for thousands of years. Whoever controlled this area had an important position between Central Europe and the Balkans. And because of that, Belgrade has been fought over, destroyed, rebuilt, and transformed many times. The city has passed through different historical periods and different powers: Roman influence, Byzantine influence, medieval Serbian rulers, Hungarian forces, Ottoman rule, and many more chapters that have left their mark on the city. So when you walk through Belgrade, you are not really walking through one single history, you are walking through layers of history, and the strange thing is, most people walking around today are simply living their normal lives. They're going to work, meeting friends, drinking coffee, taking photos, but beneath all of that, the history is still there. We have now reached Kalemegdan. This is one of the most famous places in Belgrade, and honestly, it is much bigger than I expected. There is a huge park here. There are old walls, there are different historical areas, and the views are amazing. Kalemegdan is not simply a park. It is one of the places where Belgrade's history becomes visible. The name is connected to the Ottoman period, and the area surrounding the fortress has been important for centuries. People come here today to walk, relax, meet friends, and enjoy the views, but the ground beneath them has witnessed a very different kind of life. The Belgrade Fortress is one of the most important historical sites in the city. The site has a history stretching back thousands of years. It was developed and rebuilt by different civilizations and powers over time. The fortress was not built once and then simply left alone. It was repeatedly destroyed, rebuilt, expanded, and changed, because Belgrade was never just a city sitting quietly in one place. Its location made it valuable, and anything valuable is eventually fought over. And this is what I found interesting. A place that was once connected to wars and military power is now a place where families come for a walk. Friends meet here, tourists take photos, people sit and enjoy the view. The same location in completely different lives. Hundreds of years ago, people may have come here because they had to defend the city. Today, people come here simply to enjoy an afternoon. History changes, places change, but the ground remains. From the fortress, you can see something that explains a lot about Belgrade. The rivers, the Sava, the Danube, two major rivers meeting beside the city. And when you look at this view, it becomes easier to understand why this location has always been so important. Rivers connect places, they create trade routes, they create borders, and throughout history, they can also become strategic frontiers. Honestly, This view is incredible. You can see the river, the city, and the old fortress all from the same place. This is definitely one of the best views I have seen so far in Serbia. And sometimes you don't need a long explanation. You simply arrive somewhere, look around, and realize that the place is more beautiful than you expected. We are now walking through the old part of Belgrade, and what I like is that it doesn't feel like one single tourist attraction. You can walk around and stop for food, see old buildings, and then suddenly find yourself on a completely normal street. This is where I started to understand the difference between visiting a place and experiencing it. A tourist attraction is something you go to, but a city is something you move through. You see the famous places, but you also see the ordinary ones. And sometimes the ordinary moments tell you more. Every country has a reputation, every city has stereotypes, but the moment you meet real people, those simple ideas start becoming more complicated because people are not headlines. They are not stereotypes. They are individuals, and every interaction gives you another small piece of the country. It may have been a short conversation, but when you are traveling in a new country, even a small interaction can change the way you feel about the place. After spending the day walking through Belgrade, I started to see a pattern. This city is full of contrasts, old and new, quiet and busy, beautiful and rough around the edges, historical and modern, serious and social. And maybe that's what makes the city interesting. It doesn't try to be only one thing. Before I arrived in Serbia, I had an idea of what the country might be like, but after only 2 days, I was already learning something important. First impressions are powerful, but they are not always complete. You can look at a country from the outside and think you understand it, but then you arrive, you walk through the streets, you talk to people, you see the way life actually happens, and suddenly the picture becomes bigger. By the end of my second day in Belgrade, I had seen a completely different side of the city. Yesterday, I was a traveler arriving in Serbia for the first time. Today, I was walking through a place shaped by thousands of years of history. But the more I learned about the city, the more I realized that history is only one part of understanding a country. The next question was, what are the people like? Because buildings can tell you about the past, but people tell you about the present. And tomorrow, I was going to discover another side of Belgrade, not through its monuments, but through the people living their everyday lives. Yesterday, I explored Serbia's history. I stood inside places that had survived wars, empires, and centuries of change. But history is only one part of understanding a country. Today, I wanted to understand the people, because monuments tell us where a nation has been, but its people tell us where it's going. So today, I left the tourist route behind and followed my curiosity. Every street has its own rhythm. Some people are rushing to work, others are sitting outside cafes, enjoying coffee without looking at the time. Children are laughing, musicians are performing. Life continues whether tourists are here or not. That's the side of the city I always want to experience. As I continued walking, I noticed something special. People wearing traditional Serbian clothing. Music filled the streets. Families gathered together. At first, I didn't know what was happening, but moments like this remind me why I love traveling. You discover experiences you never planned for. Culture isn't something you only find inside museums. It lives through people, through music, through celebrations, through families who continue traditions passed down for generations. Watching this reminded me that travel isn't only about famous landmarks. It's about understanding everyday life. I've learned something from traveling. No matter where you go, people want the same things: family, friendship, peace, a better future. We may speak different languages, but kindness doesn't need translation. I kept walking without checking the map. Sometimes I ended up on quiet streets. Sometimes I found busy squares filled with music and conversation. Every corner had something different. That's what makes Belgrade interesting. It never feels predictable. There are places you visit because they're famous, and then there are places that help you understand the soul of a country. For Serbia, this is one of those places. Rising above the skyline of Belgrade stands the Temple of Saint Sava, one of the largest Orthodox churches in the world. But this isn't just an impressive building, it represents something much deeper: faith, identity, and centuries of resilience. The church is dedicated to Saint Sava, a Serbian monk, teacher, and the founder of the Serbian Orthodox Church. More than 800 years ago, he helped shape not only the country's religious life, but also its education, its culture, and its national identity. Even today, he remains one of the most respected figures in Serbian history. This church stands on a site believed to be connected to Saint Sava himself. For many Serbians, coming here isn't just about visiting a landmark. It's a deeply personal experience, a place for reflection, prayer, gratitude, and hope. The moment I stepped inside, everything changed. The noise from the city disappeared. The sound of footsteps echoed through the enormous hall. Sunlight reflected from thousands of golden mosaic pieces, filling the church with a warm glow. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt peaceful. And for a few moments, I simply stopped filming. And looked around. As I walked away from the Temple of Saint Sava, I realized something. Great landmarks aren't remembered because they're big. They're remembered because of what they mean to the people who built them and the generations who continue to keep their stories alive. Sometimes The best way to understand a country isn't by reading its history, it's by quietly standing in the places that still carry it. Some memories don't become special because they're famous. They become special because they feel real. A smile from a stranger, someone pointing you in the right direction, a child waving at your camera. These moments last much longer than photographs. Before coming to Serbia, I had expectations. Some were right, many were wrong, but travel has taught me something. Never judge a country before you experience it yourself. Countries are not headlines. They are made of millions of ordinary people, each living their own story. And today, Serbia reminded me of that once again. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the buildings, the city changed once again. The streets became quieter. Lights started appearing in cafe windows. Music drifted through the air. Belgrade felt different at night, softer, more relaxed, more personal. There are two ways to travel. The first is to visit the places everyone already knows. The second is to leave the city behind, to take the slower road, to explore the places that rarely make it into travel guides. That's exactly what I wanted to do today. So I left the busy streets of Belgrade and set out to discover a small historic town place known not for skyscrapers, but for its quiet streets, centuries of history, and the warmth of its people. Traveling doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes the journey begins with nothing more exciting than waiting for a bus. We had already missed a couple of buses, so all we could do was wait, have something to eat, and hope the next one would finally arrive. One thing I've learned while traveling is that the best memories rarely come from famous landmarks. They come from people. While we were trying to figure out our journey, two local people noticed we needed help. They didn't know us. They didn't have to stop, but they did. In every country I visited, I've discovered one simple truth. The world often feels much friendlier than the internet makes it seem. The first thing I noticed about Zemun wasn't its architecture, it was the silence, not the empty kind, the peaceful kind. Life moves at a different pace here, the streets feel calmer, people smile a little more, and somehow, even strangers make you feel at home. One local woman went completely out of her way just to help me find my destination. She didn't have to, but she did. Moments like these remind me that a place isn't remembered only because of its landmarks. It's remembered because of its people. Standing here, it's hard to believe these walls have witnessed centuries of history. Every stone, every painting, every candle carries a story of its own. The moment I stepped inside, the outside world seemed to disappear, and it was so quiet that even my own footsteps echoed through the halls. This wasn't just another church, it felt like stepping into another century. After spending time inside the church, I noticed a pathway leading uphill. Locals told me that if I followed it all the way to the top, I'd see the best view in all of Zemun. So I started walking. Step by step, the streets became quieter. The crowds slowly disappeared, and with every turn, the view became even more beautiful. Then I finally reached the top. Standing there, I understood exactly why people recommend this place. Below me, the rooftops of Zemun stretched across the landscape. The Danube River flowed peacefully through the city, dividing neighborhoods that have existed for centuries. From up here, everything looked different. The noise disappeared. Time seemed to slow down. For a few minutes, I forgot about filming. I forgot about social media. I simply stood there, taking it all in. Some views aren't meant to be rushed, they're meant to be remembered. Looking across the skyline, it became obvious that Zemun isn't just another neighborhood. It's a place where history and everyday life exist side by side. The old churches, the narrow streets, the colorful houses, and the river below all tell the story of a city that has survived countless chapters of history. Wars, empires, political change, generations of families. Yet somehow, it has never lost its identity. That's what makes places like this so special. They don't pretend to be modern, they don't chase trends, they simply stay true to themselves. And that's exactly why people keep coming back. Standing above Zemun is one of its most recognizable landmarks, Gardos Tower. Built in 1896 during the Austro-Hungarian period, the tower was constructed to celebrate 1,000 years of Hungarian settlement in the Carpathian Basin. Today, it's much more than a monument. From here, you can see the Danube flowing through Belgrade, connecting different cultures and different histories and different generations. Beautiful places may attract visitors, but it's the people who give them life. Every smile, every greeting, every small conversation reminded me that travel isn't just about seeing new places. It's about connecting with the people who call those places home. After leaving the viewpoint, I made my way back down toward the river. Almost instantly, the atmosphere changed. The peaceful streets gave way to lively cafes. Music drifted through the air, and the waterfront slowly came alive. This is where Zemun truly shows its personality. Locals weren't in a hurry. Friends gathered over coffee. Families enjoyed long conversations by the water. Couples walked hand in hand along the promenade. Life here isn't measured by the clock. It's measured by moments. One thing I noticed immediately: people here know how to slow down. Nobody seemed stressed. Nobody looked like they were rushing somewhere. Instead, they were simply enjoying the evening. The cafes stretched along the riverfront, each with its own unique atmosphere. Some were filled with laughter, others offered nothing more than a quiet table, a cup of coffee, and an unforgettable view. Small boats floated gently on the Danube. Some were private, others could be rented for a relaxing ride across the river. Watching them drift by, it felt impossible not to slow down yourself. Even the cargo ships moving through the river added something special to the scene. They reminded me that this river isn't just beautiful, it's been connecting people, cultures, and countries for centuries. As the afternoon slowly turned into evening, more people began arriving. The cafes became busier, the music grew louder, the lights reflected beautifully across the water. This wasn't nightlife designed for tourists. This was everyday life, authentic, relaxed, and incredibly welcoming. Walking along the promenade, I realized something. Some destinations impress you because they're famous. Others stay with you because of how they make you feel. For me, Zemun was the second kind. I came expecting beautiful architecture, historic landmarks, and scenic views. I found all of those. But what I'll remember most is the feeling, the peaceful streets, the kindness of strangers, the quiet church, the stories hidden inside the old cemetery, the breathtaking view from above, and finally, the simple joy of watching life unfold beside the Danube. Travel isn't always about checking famous places off a list. Sometimes it's about finding somewhere that makes you slow down, take a deep breath, and appreciate the beauty of ordinary life. Zemun reminded me that not every unforgettable destination needs towering skyscrapers or world-famous attractions. Sometimes, all you need is a quiet street, a beautiful river, a little history, and kind people. Because in the end, those are the moments we remember long after the journey is over. And as the sun disappeared beyond the rooftops, I knew one thing for certain. This wouldn't be my last time in Serbia. It was only the beginning of the story. Every city has two personalities. One belongs to the daylight, where people work, rush through their routines, and quietly go about their lives. But when the sun begins to disappear, another side slowly wakes up. The streets become brighter. Music starts filling the air. Conversations grow louder, and the city begins to tell a completely different story. Tonight, I wanted to discover the Belgrade that only comes alive after dark. Sometimes, it's the smallest moments that leave the biggest impression. While crossing the road, every driver stopped without hesitation. People smiled, waved, and continued with their evening. It's a simple thing, but moments like these quietly tell you a lot about everyday life in a country. There's one thing Belgrade is famous for. It's its nightlife. People from all across Europe come here to experience it. As I walked through the city, I noticed something immediately. Every street felt alive. On one side, cafes were full. On the other, music poured out of clubs. It didn't matter where you looked. People were smiling and laughing and eating together and simply enjoying the night. As darkness settled over Belgrade, the city transformed completely. The quiet streets of the afternoon were replaced by music, glowing lights, and an energy that could be felt in every direction. Everywhere I looked, cafes were overflowing with people. Restaurants were filled with families and friends, and almost every street seemed to lead to another bar, another club, another place where people had gathered to enjoy the night. Belgrade isn't a city that sleeps early. It embraces the night and invites everyone to be part of it. It's incredible how different the city feels after sunset. During the day, Belgrade is calm and historic, but at night, it becomes full of life. Every corner has something happening. Our next stop was Belgrade's Old Town. During the day, history fills these streets, but at night, the atmosphere changes. The old buildings glow beneath warm lights. Music echoes through narrow streets, and history quietly shares the city with modern life. It's a beautiful contrast, one that makes Belgrade unlike anywhere else I've visited. This is exactly why I love exploring cities after dark. Everything feels different. The architecture, the lights, even the atmosphere changes completely. There's something magical about cities after dark. During the day, you discover their history, but at night, you discover their personality. As the streets of Belgrade lit up, the city transformed into a completely different world. The cafes were alive with conversation. Music echoed from every corner. Friends gathered around tables, sharing food, telling stories, and enjoying the simple joy of being together. Nobody seemed to be in a hurry. Time moved slower here, and perhaps that's exactly what made this place feel so special. This is incredible. I wasn't expecting Belgrade to have this kind of atmosphere. Everywhere you look, people are smiling, talking, enjoying their evening. It doesn't feel forced, it feels natural. You can really feel the energy of this city. Belgrade has earned a reputation as one of Europe's great nightlife destinations. But what impressed me wasn't just the entertainment, it was the atmosphere. Here, nightlife isn't only about loud music or crowded clubs, it's about connection. Families sharing dinner, friends catching up after a long day, musicians filling the streets with life, and visitors from around the world becoming part of the same evening. Walking through these streets, I realized that every city has its own rhythm, and tonight I was finally beginning to understand Belgrade's. Traveling isn't always about famous monuments. Sometimes it's about walking through a city with no destination and letting the atmosphere guide you. That's exactly what tonight feels like. Standing here tonight, surrounded by strangers, I didn't feel like a stranger. That's the beauty of travel. Sometimes, thousands of kilometers from home, you discover places that somehow feel familiar, different language, different culture, different traditions. Yet the smiles, the laughter, and the kindness feel exactly the same. It reminded me that no matter where we come from, we're all searching for the same things: peace, happiness, and moments worth remembering. As the night slowly came to an end, I looked back at the streets of Belgrade one last time. I came here expecting history, beautiful architecture, and famous landmarks. But what I'll remember most is something much simpler: the people, the conversations, the atmosphere, and the feeling of a city that welcomed me with open arms. Serbia had shown me another side of itself tonight, not through monuments, but through ordinary moments that became unforgettable memories. And that's the kind of travel experience I'll carry with me long after this journey ends. Every journey has a beginning, and every journey, no matter how unforgettable, eventually reaches its final chapter. This morning felt different. The excitement of arriving had been replaced by the quiet feeling of leaving. My backpack was a little heavier, not because of the things I had bought, but because of the memories I was taking home. Today was my last day in Serbia, and before moving on to a new country, I wanted to take one last look at the place that had surprised me in so many ways. Before leaving, I wanted to walk through Belgrade one last time, not to visit another tourist attraction, but simply to appreciate the city as it was. People drinking coffee, friends laughing together, trams moving through the streets. Life continued exactly as it had every other day, and somehow that made saying goodbye even more difficult. One traveler told me he loved Serbia. Another admitted that his experience hadn't been what he expected, and that's completely normal. Travel is personal. The same city can feel completely different depending on the people you meet, the moments you experience, and the memories you create. There is no single version of a country, only the version that each traveler carries home. Just enough time to grab something to eat. I'm starving after all that running around. Ticket in hand, food in hand. Now we just wait for the bus. It's going to be a long ride, around 8 or 9 hours, but that's okay. Some of the best parts of travel happen on the road. We're on the move now. The roads here are actually really good, smooth, clean. Feels a bit like a proper highway. Outside the window, villages, green fields, farms. They have these irrigation systems with pipes spraying water everywhere. Looks well organized. I love these small villages, people hanging clothes in the sun, animals around, simple houses, mountains in the background. It feels real, peaceful. Someone once said the journey is more beautiful than the destination. Today, that feels true. And just now, my friend said something that I really liked. So I asked her, how's village life? She just smiled. No words, no comments. I'm happy. You're a very intelligent girl. The villages still look so similar. The same style of houses, the same churches, the same green hills. You can tell these countries were once part of the same region. The differences are small, but they're there. Some places almost look like Switzerland, tiny houses between the mountains, rivers flowing quietly, little dams. It's really beautiful. Finally, I arrived in the new city. It's evening now, and I'm tired, really tired. My first impressions? Interesting. You see women wearing hijab, and then you also see pubs and bars. Both exist side by side. That's something different from Serbia. The streets feel alive. But I'm too exhausted to explore properly tonight. Tomorrow, I'll finally start exploring. I found a Turkish restaurant and ordered way too much food. Pizza, and of course, baklava. I don't know why, but baklava always tastes better when you're exhausted after a long journey. So that's it for today. Last day in Serbia, first night in a new country, 8 or 9 hours on the bus. Beautiful villages, a border crossing, and now a quiet night. But for now, it's time to rest. See you in the next one.